Hello there, everyone. I'm Mason Beam with the Wise News Network, and today we've got part 2 of the Dash Series reunion. In a moment, you'll be hearing from some legendary drivers such as BJ Mackey, Danny Bagwell, and Wayne Auton, one of the series directors. We'll also be hearing from Jerry Haislip, the representative for the Goodies Dash Series, who spoke with us. There may be a familiar face return for some of those who have seen our other racing content. Be sure to keep watching to find out.
I thought I was coming here to see a whole bunch of friends, and I had to come to work. Mike captured me on the way in and said, speak. I'm nervous as hell because I don't remember whether I yelled at you, whether I patted you on the back, whether I gave you a high five. So if I yelled at you, I'll go ahead and apologize now. Nah, we ain't gonna do that. What a series. And I will say this on myself, the half of this series is the reason that I got to the position that I am today. And so thanks all of you for teaching me how to do my job. We did it together, we. But Mike asked me to say a few words. We want to give a special recognition to this guy right here, Jerry Haislip. I think we all know what he meant to this division. Jerry started his love affair with racing in the mid-1980s, taking photographs. And I remember him doing that, by the way. Some of us are that old, losing hair. And you still got yours, right? A lot of it, yeah. It hadn't changed a bit. Hadn't changed a bit.
Yeah, it's thin as it was then.
It's thin as it was then. But Jerry started his love affair with racing in the mid-1980s, taking photographs for Stock Car Racing magazine and Winston Cup scene in what is now called the Grand National Series. Excuse me, what was then called the Grand. In 1990, he made a transition to event coordinator for Goodies headache powders, and that was a big plus for everybody sitting in this room. When Goodies approached NASCAR about the title sponsorship of the Dash Series, Goodies assigned a relationship to Jerry. He started traveling with the series after the event in Daytona in 1992, attending all but 4 events through 2003, 12 years of representing Goodies to the Dash Series. During his tenure with the series, Jerry did annual press guides and press releases for the media and racing publications. He coordinated Victory Lane. He was the hat man for other series sponsors and guided the race winner to speak with the press pool. Jerry retired from his position of director of special events at Goodies in 2006. Jerry will tell you that he found the Dash Series drivers, their families and crew members to be real family. And we agree with that, Jerry, because you are part of our family too. Jerry has faithfully represented and supported the series with dignity and honor these many years. We should all stand and recognize one of the longtime Dash Series supporters, promoters, and most of all, our friend Jerry Haislip, a true champion of the sport.
We're here with Jerry Haislip, an icon in the Goodies Dash Series. Now, Jerry, tell us a little bit about your history when you got started into the Goodies Dash Series.
Actually, I got started in 1992, but I'd been in racing, shooting pictures for 12 years before that, so I was acquainted with a lot of the guys in the Dash Series. And Goodies hired me in 1990. And I was doing special events coordinating for Goodies headache powders. And as it turned out, they called me on the telephone and they said, we've just taken over the Goodies what's going to be called the Goodies Dash Series, and that's going to be your project, your baby. And I said, okay. And at that time we were running maybe 18 races a year. We got it up to about 25 before it was over with, but it was a lot of fun to do. It was family. I loved everybody in the Dash Series. They were great. They're in here. Most of them are in here. They're great people. They do anything in the world for you. And I think you know as well, if somebody had a problem, somebody in the field could help them with it.
Yeah, it was like family. If you had a gear problem, somebody'd let you borrow a gear or a shock. And one of the things I remember being a driver is you sticking your head in the car before every race and wishing us well.
That was a tradition that I started at the first race. I would go from the front to the back or the back to the front, didn't make any difference. But the director knew what I was doing. I would stick my head in the car and my hand in the car, and I would say, have a good, safe race.
Now, Goody's put the Dash Series basically on the map, wouldn't you say, in the 90s?
It gave a lot of PR. When I would go to Myrtle Beach or Charlotte or wherever you guys were, or wherever the cars were, I would have 50 or 60 guests of Goodies sitting in the suites watching, eating Buffalo Wild Wings and all that kind of stuff, and they really enjoyed it. And the majority of the people, you would be surprised as the number of the people came back and said, we've seen the Xfinity, we've seen the Busch, we've seen the Cup cars. The Dash race was the best race of the weekend.
Yeah, we put on a show. The Dash Series definitely put on a show regardless of what track we were going to. In the late 90s, you know, it was in its heyday. We were sending, 30 cars home some weeks?
I think the most I ever saw at Daytona one year, we had 56 entries for a 40-car show. And that meant that we sent enough cars home to go down the road to Volusia County and put on another race and not even touch the cars in the Daytona race. So it was a lot, and it was sad to send them home, but you know, that was racing. You know how it is. If you couldn't get your qualifying speed up, they didn't need you in the fields, basically what they said.
Correct. Now, is there any one moment or special occasion or something that happened during the Dash Series that just really sticks out in your mind?
Well, I think with us being the first series that ever ran a competitive race at Homestead Motor Speedway in Homestead, Florida, sticks in my mind because we were number one. We were the first NASCAR series that ever ran on that track competitively for trophies and money.
Wow, that's a first. That's something to be proud of.
Oh yeah, I went down there, and that was the weekend that we had a great time. And the fella that won it was Dexter Knipe, and I'll never forget this. The man that was running the speedway was a Cuban fella out of Miami, and he ran the street races in Miami, and then they went out and built Homestead Motor Speedway. We're standing in Victory Lane, and he says to Dexter, he says, "Where's your wife?" And he says, "She's at home." And it was really the first time I'd ever seen somebody yank out a cell phone and say, "What's your telephone number?" And he calls, gets her on the phone and says, "Your husband won the race, he wants to talk to you," and handed him the phone, and they were talking on the phone from Miami to North Carolina.
So that was a big deal back then, and now cell phones are just, everyone's got one in their back pocket.
Now, I just thought that was so cool that he had it. He had a phone, and he called the young man's wife and congratulated her as well for winning, because the families, the wives that would stay at home and the ones that were taking care of the kids that weren't there, they were the blood and guts of this series.
Yeah, the families, they were the nervous ones up in the stands and watching on TV. The drivers, they were just driving and having a good time, and the families were all nervous and on pins and needles usually.
Yeah, I'd have drivers say to me, "I'm not nervous, but I'm nervous now, but as soon as I get in that car, I'll be fine." And I'd say, "Well, let's get this show on the road."
Now, after the Goodies Dash Series, what did you do?
I worked for Goodies for another 3 years, and then they had me going all over the place. Texas, Phoenix. I mean, I was gone. One year I did the entire series. I would get home on Tuesday, pack my bag on Wednesday, and go to the airport Friday morning and fly back out and go somewhere else. So,
do you keep up with racing today?
I hate to say this, but when I retired 14 years ago from the racing, I haven't been back in a track since. I watch them on TV. And of course, I watch a lot of the Goodies Dash Series on YouTube. I'll go back and search for them.
Yeah, a lot of those races are starting to come back out, and it's neat to see the old races, and even the old Busch and Winston Cup races are neat to watch too.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, I did the hat trick I was Bill Broderick of the Dash Series. And when we would go to some tracks, guys would come up and they say, now we've got a guy that'll take care of that for us. And I'd say, just send him up there with me and we'll work it out.
We're here with Bill Blair, and he's going to tell us a few stories about his involvement and what he knows about the Goodies Dash Series. Bill, glad you're here today.
Well, I'm glad to be here, really. At 85, you bet. Well, thank you. We come over to visit with the guys who started this series, and I guess it's about 1972, 73 it was started up in North Wilkesboro. A guy named Bill Ellis had the dragway up there, Wilkesboro Dragway. He built a road course and started building cars. They were Vegas and Pintos, as I remember, and that's how it got started. And it ended up being a Dash Series, Goodies Dash Series. But the group of guys that were involved in it during that period of time came over here to the Hendrick Motor Complex to be together again, you know. The second time they've done this. It was a great reunion. But anyway, I knew Bill Ellis, and he called me up one day and told me about this series he's starting. And he called it the Babygram. And that Vegas, Pintos, and cars like that. And didn't have the rules were in his head because he wanted me to build a car and he wanted me to build some motors for him. So I asked him specifics about the rules on the car building, you know, and it's like, well, you got to do your roll cage, similar to what NASCAR does, and the motors are such and such, but very few rules. Well, I built him 2 engines, and a Pinto and a Vega. I built Ronnie Thomas's first engine for his Vega. Will Concrete built his Vega for him, turnkey car. And Phil Parson, I built his first engine, and others. The car I built, I sold it to Skip Lyles Chevrolet there in High Point, and his daddy named George Lyles found out he had bought it and made him sell it. So, yeah, I kept up with it a little bit, that series, but I was really busy with the Grand National stuff and late model sportsman. And the car I built, I intended to drive it, but not enough days in the week to do that. So, look back on it now, I did what I thought I had to do. Those guys had a good time, no doubt. I listened to the stories here today, and all great stories and still great friends, you know. You know, I look around and see these guys, I got to look at their name tag to recognize them. You know, I guess they do likewise.
Now, during the speeches, they talked about a revenue driving and the drivers were chasing him. I thought that was a story, but there's some truth to that.
Well, that SOB really was a revenue. No, Tommy's a good guy, Tommy Chapman. He was trained by Billy Queen, who was stationed in Forest City, North Carolina, transferred to Greensboro, North Carolina. He chased my daddy one time.
We're here with driver Danny Bagwell, and he knows what I'm going to ask him about. One of the horrific wrecks down at Daytona. And tell us a little bit about that.
There's not a lot to tell. I don't really, remember a lot about it. All I remember is, you know, that thing. I don't know what happened to start with, but it just started rolling and flipping, and then it was light, and it was dark, and it was light, and it was dark, and then it was a big thump, and that was the end of it. And then I thought, you know, am I okay or what? You know, I thought, well, I got to get out of here because there was actually it was water. I thought it was gasoline, but there was some water dripping down right on my face. The helmet shield was up, and I thought I got to get out of here. So I tried to get out, and the radio wire was hung in the helmet, and I finally ended up taking the helmet off to get out of the car, and I'm sitting there, laid there on the track, and I look, and this car's going by. I said, this gonna be bad if I don't just stay here and be still for a minute. So, you know, worked out okay. It wasn't really hurt real bad, and you know, I don't know that we still know what happened.
Well, tell us a little bit about your racing career, Danny, in the Dash Series. When you started and that sort of thing.
Well, I'd been involved in 4-cylinder racing around home a lot, and I kind of had they came to Birmingham one time, and I think Michael Waltrip and Hut Strickland and a couple of the guys that I kind of knew their names, and I happened to be at the racetrack and just kind of took an interest in that car, and I just thought, well, you know, I'm gonna build me one of these cars, and we're gonna see what we can do with it. So it took a year or so, and we finally got us a car put together. And the I think the first race we went to was Bowman Gray Stadium. It kind of broke us in pretty good, and we just from then on, that was in '91, I believe, and after that we just kind of started gradually getting a little better and started winning a few races, and you know, goodies came along and made the thing a lot better for everybody. That's not a whole lot more to say, and it's just a family deal. We love to do it, and really tried to do a few other things. Tried to do a couple of bush races and truck races, and it just never really had enough financing to do it right. So we just kind of fell back and hung in there with the Dash Series, and we started running a few late model races here and there. And then, you know, after you get a certain age, things kind of start slowing down, and you got to slow down with it. So.
Well, what's amazing about the Dash Series, if you would go to a 3rd mile track up to Daytona, and that's a big difference. So the Dash Series, they started at North Wilkesboro in the short tracks, but then continued to go to Darlington and Charlotte and Daytona and those big tracks. And did you ever have a short track on a large track? Did that happen to you, or did you just have super speedway cars?
No, we had a couple of cars, and you know, we always tried to keep one car in really good shape for the big race tracks, because, you know, an old bent up race car don't work good in air and all that. So, you know, we were lucky. We had some help during, you know, with some aerodynamic people and some things like that. We finally got connected with Ford, and, you know, it was kind of a lone deal out there with Ford, and everybody else was in Pontiacs or Toyotas or Chevrolets, and it just, you know, kind of worked out for us. I don't know whether it was better to be that way or to be a part of the, you know, the group that had all the, you know, you had parts that everybody could use. A lot of our parts wouldn't work with other guys, so we just, you know, did what we had to do, and it seemed like it worked out pretty good.
Well, Danny, appreciate you speaking to us. What are you doing these days?
Trying to quit working.
Trying to quit working.
Yeah, we have a little manufacturing business in Birmingham, and we just, you know, we've had that all. That's kind of been our support deal all along, and we're at the age now where me and my wife both, it's time to settle down and maybe go see some friends before we leave this place.
We're here with Dash Series driver B.J. Mackey, and I remember B.J. Mackey. Most time I was looking at him from the rear, but what have you been up to, B.J.?
Just racing a little girl, and, man, working all the time, and still race a little bit. I mean, maybe once or twice a year when we get a chance, and late model stocks. And other than that, just living life and enjoying it.
Now, you won quite a few races there, the late 90s, wasn't it, early 2000s?
Yeah, I think I raced mostly 98 through 2001 era. 2000 was probably my highlight year when I got a break and drove for Jeff Daly Racing, and we carried the Van Camp Bean banner for 2 years, and I think 2000 we led the most laps and won the most races that year, and of 4 I think it was that year, and yeah, so I think 2000 would have been my highlight year in the Dash Series.
Do you have any race that really stuck out or sticks out in your mind above all the rest?
Probably, I think probably the first win that I ever got was at Tri-County, and that was our house car. That was a car family owned, and that was 96, which was the second year we had ran. First year was kind of part-time. But our first win at Tri-County, when we were up against Lyndon Amick and Swain Jr. on a restart, and pulled off the win, and it was kind of like the underdogs against the big dogs. I think that would probably be the highlight.
So racing anymore? Do you watch it on TV? Are you still involved in racing?
I'm still involved a little. I have a small clearing and grading business. Do that full time, but with the race cars, we've got one there. I race once or twice a year, and that's it. I mean, we just kind of, it takes so much time these days, and it's gotten so expensive to even run on a local level that you just about got to commit to doing it full time or don't do it at all. And I just can't commit to doing it full time unless I'm getting paid to do it. So.
Well, we never did race for the money. Even if you won every race, you still wouldn't break even. And that's the way it is today. Even today, it's like that.
It is, absolutely it is. It's the asphalt side of things, especially late model stock racing like I've been doing, is so competitive. I mean, most of your top tier late model teams have 2 or 3 full-time employees now.
Wow.
And it's just that racing has gotten to where the Busch Series was 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
So wow, it's got that much money, competitiveness.
It is. It's a tough thing to deal with, to race against the teams that's got the full-time employees and basically unlimited budgets. I mean, I've heard of late model stock teams, budgeting $250,000, $300,000 a year to run one car. So it's hard to compete against that.
Wow. Well, BJ, I remember you racing, and I know the Dash fans remember you racing because the late 90s, early 2000s, you were a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We always had to do our own things, and I was lucky enough to live in Rock Hill, where Wesley Page and John Page, and I grew up with Wesley, so he was a big help back in the day, and we were just fortunate enough to get lucky to put things together and have good cars, have fast cars.
Well, guys, that's all for part 2 of this series. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to leave a like down below. We've got plenty of interesting drivers left to show you, so be sure to check out our Facebook and YouTube so you don't miss out on parts 3 and 4 of this series. And for plenty of other content, be sure to find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Please be sure to check out our website, wisenewsnetwork.com, for our news articles. I'm Mason Beam with the Wise News Network, and I'll be sure to see you in part 3.